Hello and welcome along to the Panto podcast. This week my guest is the singer Joe McElderry. Joe took time out of his recent tour to speak to me about his life and how much he enjoys pantomime. I've also included links as well to Joe's Twitter and his website so you can follow him wherever he's going to be. And a big hello as well to our new listeners. Just to say we've got 50 episodes previously in the bag that you might want to have a listen to. Everybody's story is absolutely great fun and I hope you enjoy them. So please sit back and enjoy the latest Panto podcast. So my guest for today's Panto podcast is Mr. Joe McElderry. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
We're here in a hotel looking out.
We've got a lovely view.
Beautiful view over the Tyne.
Yes.
And it's wonderful. So...
And fog on the Tyne.
Yeah, there is a bit.
What an awful day. Still a nice view though.
So you're all getting geared up ready for pantomime season.
Yes. I'm excited. It's my favourite time of the year. I love I just find it so fun. And when I first signed up to do my first one, everyone was like, oh my God, you're doing Panto. Like, you know, that's full on. Like, it's a really heavy schedule. It's a lot of shows. And I was a little bit anxious, but after the first one, I was obsessed. I love it.
Did you go to Pantos as a child?
So it's funny because I didn't want to be a singer when I was younger until I was about 14. But we used to go to a local pantomime at the Customs House in South Shields. And it was the big family trip every year. And I remember sitting in the audience from being about 4 or 5. And I used to think, oh my God, I wonder what's going on backstage. I used to be fascinated with I used to think it was some magical den, you know? And that was always my thought. I used to think, I want to go backstage and see what it looks like. And I was obsessed with it. I used to copy the Panto every year. I used to watch it, then go home and do the whole reenactment of all the scenes for all the family. So although I didn't want to be a singer till quite late on, that was kind of my first experience of loving kind of the industry, shall we say.
Did you ever go backstage then?
I didn't actually. Not until I went... So when I won XFactor... I got invited down by the Customs House and they were doing, that year in 2009, they were doing a kind of sketch with a photo of me on the stage because obviously, you know, I was in the show at the time. And then on the night that I went, I hid behind the photo and they did a reveal. And it was the first time, obviously, I'd been back in my hometown. So that was the first time I'd ever gone backstage and seen a pantomime. And I saw that it wasn't so glamorous. As a lot of this industry is. It looks very glamorous on the front. And it's not always that glamorous behind the scenes.
What sort of pantos then were they putting on back then?
Oh, they were great. You know, I mean, the Customs House just have that great way of kind of putting on a fantastic show, but keeping that kind of community spirit through it, you know, and that kind of, just that proper Panto kind of, just everything you want from a Panto, you know, just the traditional kind of way of doing it. And yeah, and Ray Spencer and all of and Bob Stott as well, when he was there, they were such a team, you know. And I actually haven't seen one of their Pantos for a few years because I'm normally obviously in a Panto at the same time. So I do need to try and get to see it before I go down to Birmingham.
Were you always a little singer then when you were a little boy?
I was more like drama and kind of imitating people when I was a kid. I was terrified to sing in front of people, and I didn't start singing until I was 14. I used to sing in my room on my own, but if you asked us to sing to people, I wouldn't do it. I was just like, I can't sing. And it was just confidence, terrified to stand up in front of people, which is fascinating to me now because I actually genuinely love it now. And nerves and everything, I've always, in my professional career, I've always dealt with nerves really well. Like, it's always helped me performance, if anything. So I always find I've almost took a full U-turn, which I find quite strange.
Do you ever suffer with the nerves?
Oh, every time I go on. Every time. Like, I wouldn't say suffer though, because I actually... For me, that's nerves are what make you do your job properly, but they do for me anyways. Nerves take my concentration level to 110, and when I'm nervous, I'm aware of everything that's going on the stage. What band, if I'm talking about a concert vibe as well, you know, and I love that buzz. And I used to get it like where on a show day, the moment I would wake up, I'd have that knot in my stomach. I'd be like, oh my God, I've got a show tonight. Whereas now I don't really get that until about 30 minutes before the show. But I love that. It's part of the... I think I would be more terrified if I was stood at the side of a stage waiting to go on for a concert and didn't have any nerves, because I would know that I was going to make loads of mistakes. I find that nerves make you concentrate. They just make you be on your A game.
So you said then 14 you sort of broke out, shall I say, and thought, what the heck, let's sing.
Yeah.
What kind of things were you singing back then?
Karaoke. Just did karaoke. We used to have a karaoke room in my auntie's house, and we used to all get up and do stuff. I used to be Robbie Williams, Wet, Wet, Wet. I used to sing a bit of Stevie Wonder, Luther Vandross, Michael Jackson. Just the standard karaoke songs. And then once I'd kind of started singing, I then sang a little bit at the Customs House. I was a waiter at the Customs House and a dishwasher, and I would wash the dishes, and then they would send the desserts out, and while the desserts were being eaten, I would change into a black shirt, take my apron off, and I would go out and sing with the piano player who worked there. And then I started getting like offers to do like, will you come and sing at my charity gig at the social club here or there? And that was, and then I started to kind of build a little bit of a kind of local name in terms of doing gigs for people and charity stuff. And then I remember I did a fireworks display thing, or I think it was a charity event in Sunderland, and somebody came up to us and said, "Me daughter's absolutely obsessed with your voice. You know, we don't know who you are. We've just heard they owned a burger van, and they were doing a burger van on the fireworks night thing." She came over. She said, "My daughter is obsessed with your voice. Like, she wants to book you for our wedding." And I remember thinking, oh my God, I've got my first book. And I remember the paid us. And I literally was like, oh my God, like that feeling of getting paid for your first gig. It was so exciting. It was amazing. And
for something you love as well.
Yeah. And just exciting that somebody'd kind of heard, because everything else I'd done before that was all for free and everything, just because I loved singing and I just wanted to get the experience. And then for somebody to like actually book you on their wedding day, and have no idea who you are and everything, and I got paid. I got paid quite well actually as well. For a 16-year-old, I got about 300 quid. I was like, amazing.
Has family always been very supportive then?
Yeah, I've got very, very close knit family, very big family on dad and mum's side, and they're all very supportive. And yeah. Like, just, I think in this industry, you know, obviously for me, I went through a very kind of life-changing experience at a young age, and everything kind of flips upside down in it overnight, essentially. I think it's been a saving grace for me that I've got a very close, supportive family that just kind of have just adapted, because it doesn't just affect you, you know, it affects everybody in your family. When you go into the public eye, it's not just a singular thing. The press attention and everything, it kind of ripples out onto everybody that's close to you. So they've been great.
Any performing history within the family then?
Yeah, so I mean, everyone in my family thinks they can sing. My grandma used to be able to sing really well. She was a great singer. Her brother was a singer and went on Opportunity Knocks when he was younger and used to do quite a lot of gigs around the northeastern social clubs. My dad's quite a good singer. My mum can hold a tune.
She's in the background here. Hello, Mum.
But yeah, so like, and as families, that we were always kind of that family that everybody gets up and does their party piece. So I suppose that was kind of where I got the love of kind of, as I say, showing off.
So how did the pantomime first come about for you?
So Kudos contacted me in 2014, would it have been? 2013, 2014. And I think they'd had a couple of conversations previous to that with previous managements I was with as well. But I hadn't kind of I kind of hadn't received those offers through those managements or whatever, you know, the politics of the industry. And then I signed with a new management company, and they'd contacted them, and we had a meeting, and I was like, I knew I loved it to watch it, but I thought, am I going to love it to do it? You know, because it's a completely different thing. And obviously, from that point at that point in time, I hadn't done any musical theatre. It was all just pop. I'd done the classical album. I'd done my own solo shows, but I'd never done anything kind of as what I would call on-stage acting, like being a part of a bigger show kind of thing. So I signed up, and I was terrified. I thought, what if I hate it, you know? And I remember, like, 3 days into rehearsal, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to absolutely love this. It was just that, like, being a part of the comedy, it's just fun, you know, it's just light-hearted fun. And, you know, it is very scripted in the sense of, you know, and it's a very professional way of working, but I love that kind of, at the same time, it's very slick and professional, but it's so loose and free, because you're essentially allowing the audience to guide the show almost with their answer backs, and, you know, he's behind you and all of that, and booing and cheering and everything. And it's just, I think if you love an audience, and you, like I do, being a part of a panto where you have that instant rapport with the audience the minute you walk on, it's just great.
Does it allow you that little bit more freedom, you would say, than singing in your own concerts?
Well, I mean, I suppose, for me, like, when if anybody's come to see one of my solo concerts, like, I'm on tour at the moment, and I talk a lot to the audience. I make a point of, and for me, I hate it when I go to a pop concert and they hardly speak to the audience, because I think I could have just listened to your album. You know, what am I getting that I wouldn't get by putting on your album? You know, and obviously you're getting the live vocal, but I think, as an audience member, I always like it when you go to a concert and they reference something of that town, or they reference something that they've done in that day, just something that you feel they didn't say last night. So for me, I make a big point when I do my own shows. I talk to the audience. I change the chat that I'm doing night by night. I reference things that's going on in the audience that night. I talk to the audience. Like, I pick members out of the audience to kind of converse with, because that's what I want to see when I go and see a show. So I think with Panto, it also massively allows you to do that as well, you know, especially, you know, if you're working alongside the comedians and stuff, and like, watching them, you know, I've worked with Billy P.S. Cannonball, and many, many other great ones, and they have that, like, way of just going like miles off the script, like, and taking it to an audience member or referencing something, and then in that split second bringing it straight back to exactly where you were. And I find that, like, to be a part of that is great as well.
Has anybody given you much advice like that?
Well, I'm a sponge. Like, I watch people and I just take things in, you know, and, like, working with the likes of Billy P.S. and Cannonball, just being, I did a lot of my scenes. So the 2 years I'd worked with them, I played it's the same character I'm going to be playing in Birmingham this year. I played the Spirit of the Mirror, and so a lot of my scenes were with both of those, and I just used to watch them and take it in and watch how they work and how quick they are to just, like, think of something on the spot, you know. And obviously I've seen Matt Slatt. I'm going to be working with Matt Slatt this year, but I've seen him on stage because I've been down to Birmingham to watch him, and the same, you know, like, they're just the masters of their craft, you know, like, of how to just drive a show and keep it moving, but also be in complete control of it at the same time, you know.
Would you ever like to get into comedic roles?
Well, I did Club Tropicana this year, and that was the first comedy role I've played. So I played an entertainments manager in a rubbish hotel, shall we say? And I did the role was complete comedy. It was a lot of slapstick comedy as well, and I loved it. It was a completely different way of working, and I can never switch off when I do my own concerts, but I suppose, how do I explain this? Like, when I do my own concerts, after about 3 shows or 4 shows, you kind of can go into You know where you need to up the gear. You know where you need to change the gear in the show. You get your kind of track of where you need to go. And the beginning when you're hyped up and then halfway through. And you know the kind of map of what you need to do to get through that 2-hour show. And once I'm 3 shows in, I'm kind of like, I can relax into it. And I know exactly what I need to do and where I need to kind of preserve my voice on this song to get through that one. What I found with doing comedy, and I take my hat off to them, no show is ever the same. Like, so you'd go on one night and you'd think, right, I'm going to tell this joke, but Manchester found that joke hilariously funny. Birmingham don't find that joke funny. So being on tour with the show and working through that all the time, your gear changes are completely different every night. So I could never switch off. Like, and I don't switch off on stage ever, but it was just a completely different kind of work. And I was like, wow, like I really understand now, like how it's hard. It is hard, like delivering comedy to an audience. And some places just don't find certain jokes funny, and then some places a joke that isn't even supposed to be that funny, that it's the highlight of the show. So working out where that sat and everything on a week by week basis, doing it was a massive learning curve.
How do you find the school performances?
Well, we were quite lucky with Club Tropicana that it wasn't really marketed to that kind of audience. So that was easy in terms of the comedy. But in terms of the Panto, what's great is just listening to the kids. Like, they're just so into it from the minute it starts. You know, I did Southampton last year. And I think the pre-show music was, I think it might have been like Frozen or something. And before we'd even started the show, the whole, like 2,000 people, they're screaming along to Let It Go. So before it's even begun, you know, they're just like, they're in it, they're ready for it. And just watching kids, like, they're just so into the story, you know, like they're like, no, don't do that, and don't Snow White, no, you know. And being able to just watch, because, you know, for me, like, I was that kid, you know, and to be a part of like fantastic shows that Kudos put on and watching kids like being introduced to theatre in that way is just so magical.
Can you see yourself still doing this in many years' time?
I hope so. You know, I mean, I'm on a tour at the moment celebrating 10 years in the industry, because it's 10 years this year since XFactor, which is absolutely, I mean, 10 years is even madness.
It's flown, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And I've crammed a lot into a short space of time. So I hope so. But more importantly, I think it's important to say, it's all well and good saying that I hope I'm doing it in years to come. I hope I still enjoy it. You know, like I still love it as much as I did day one. And I would like to hope that in 20 years' time I'm still doing it. But I'd also really, really want to still love it as well. Because I think if I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? I think part of the reason why you can knuckle down in this industry, because people forget, you know, they come see shows, they come see concerts, they come see pantos, they go see musicals. Behind the scenes, it's a tough industry, you know, and I think it's important that people realise that as well. So I think your passion for it has to still be there for you to enjoy it.
Are we talking mentally, physically, quite draining?
I think physically, you know, doing schedules is tough. You know, whilst I'm aware you're not doing a 15-hour shift in a hospital, you know, I'm not comparing it to anything like that. But what I'm saying is that it's a physical demand on your body vocally, you know. And when I'm doing my own shows and things, like I have to live for the show. So, you know, I can't drink alcohol when I'm on a tour. I can't, like, you know, when I'm doing my own concerts, I'm talking about, you know, where it's just me. I can't drink alcohol. You're literally do the show, get off stage, go to bed, get up, warm up, exercise, do the show. So it's, but what I was more referencing was just, it's a ruthless industry. You know, yes. and the business side of it isn't that nice, you know. And I think navigating through that, your passion for the industry, for performing, allows you to kind of just deal with it. So I always try and stay above that part of it, because it can be very ruthless.
You always come across as such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And it's obviously there's things that happen behind the scenes that you sort of get little glimpses of in the papers and
Yeah.
things like this. How much of that press intrusion has that affected you over the years much?
I mean, it was an adjustment in the beginning, as I'm sure any 18-year-old going through that experience.
But you're growing up as well,
yeah,
aren't
well,
you? You've still got
you're
growing up
working
to do.
out who you are. You want to be a teenager, and people are commenting on things and asking you things, and you just, the first 2 years for me was definitely like it was a navigation through it all. I was like, oh, right, okay, where am I going? What am I doing? I've got no idea how to work in this industry. I've got no idea who I am to tell you who I am, So I was lucky that I had a great behind-the-scenes support network that kind of helped us through all of that. And I didn't buy into it that much. I tried to stay out of it. So I would attend the events, I would do what I needed to do, and then I would kind of come back to Newcastle and just stay out of it. And I've kind of still done that for the last 10 years. I dip into it when I have to for work and promotion, and if I'm doing an album or a tour and things, I do my job, I show up, I do my job good, I like to think, and then I step out of it when I don't need to be a part of it. And I found that really works for me, because I think sometimes you can become very consumed in it all, and it's not real life. It's not like that's why it's called show business, And so I found that, like, I never moved away from Newcastle as well. I use this as my base, and I go back and forwards to London or wherever I'm working. And I found that's really worked as well, because it creates like a separation from real life to work, and it allows us to kind of be like, right, I'm going to work now. Right, I'm not at work, that kind of barrier.
It's a different pace of life up here as well.
Well, and also it is a different pace of life, but also when you, like, I've got a lot of friends in the industry, but a lot of me best friends aren't in the industry. And when you come home, they're not interested in talking about, what the show was like on Thursday night or what such and such in the show did. And it just creates that separation as well, that there is a whole world that revolves outside of show business,
How do you look after yourself then?
In what sense?
In terms of vocally and physically as well.
I mean, I'm lucky that I actually enjoy exercising, so that's always a good thing. And I find that is great for mental health, first of all. I find getting up and doing a workout, it clears the mind. I really enjoy boxing, like pad boxing on the pads and stuff, and interval training with boxing. I do quite a lot of that when I'm in London. There's a few classes I go to and a few up here. Vocally, just the usual things. Like, I don't drink before my concert. If I'm singing 3 or 4 songs, I can kind of have a couple of drinks and I would be all right. If I was doing a 2-hour show, the vocal stamina I need for that, I have to just not drink alcohol. So for the last 2 weeks, maybe, while I've been on this tour, I've had no alcohol. Early nights, don't talk too much. I don't really go to loud places where I'm going to end up shouting, and just warming up before a show and being aware of your voice. I'm always very aware of my voice, and I'm touch wood. Where's the wood? Head, touch my head. I've been quite lucky that my voice has got great stamina, so I can do a lot of back-to-back shows. And it holds out, and I don't struggle, touch wood, with many vocal issues, but I do also take care of it. So I think it goes hand in hand, and I'm also sensible that if I am struggling, I don't oversing. I use a good technique. I learned great technique from Pops on Opera Star.
What's the technique? Can you learn?
Well, just proper breathing technique. They taught us how to classically sing, essentially. So they give us a classical technique, using the technique that everybody who sings properly uses, using your diaphragm properly, opening your mouth, releasing your jaw tension. So I'm lucky that when I do my shows, I do sing a lot of the classical stuff because I recorded quite a lot of that. But I can also apply that to the pop singing as well, which is great for protecting your voice because it allows you to kind of hit those big high notes, but you're using that proper technique. So I'm quite lucky that I got that training for free. I got that training on that TV show, like, just from being a part of the TV show. We're trained by some of the best vocal coaches in the country. and yeah, I mean, you couldn't even pay for the kind of training I was given on that show. It was unbelievable.
What about then when you get the winter sniffles?
Again, just I've come from a background as well, I think, and I suppose because before I stepped into musical theatre, my first 5 years of my career, I was a solo performer. That I did concerts, I did my own tours, there was no stand-in, there was no understudy for me. So I kind of had to take that attitude of the show has to go on. Because if you cancel, it costs not only you a lot of money, it costs everybody who's bought tickets to come and see it, the production teams, the promoters and everything, and it's a lot of pressure on your shoulders. So I've always just had that kind of mentality. I mean, I've gone on stage in... the audience wouldn't have known because I'm quite good at hiding it, but I've been really ill at times, where you've had bugs, vomiting bugs, anything, and you just have to do it, So just anything to get through it, really, Lemsip, like soluble paracetamol is the saviour, if I'm really, really struggling. And I got a tip actually of a fan years ago. He sent a letter. He was like an ex-paramedic. And bicarbonate of soda, a teaspoon in warm water and gargle it on your voice. I mean, it's disgusting. It tastes disgusting, but honestly, it is. I swear by it. I will not be responsible for anybody else trying it if it goes wrong, but it really does work. It's a natural. Apparently, it's like a natural antiseptic for the body, and it works wonders for my voice. I sometimes have it every time I go on a show. Even if I'm not croaky, I find it's a great... It clears your throat and everything. It's great.
There's going to be lots of Panto performers now going to be copying this, aren't they?
I mean, to be fair, loads of people who I work with, sometimes people will come to my room and be like, "You're a singer. What can I do for my voice?" And I've given it to loads of people, and a lot of people say it just... I don't know what it is that somebody might be able to know what it is that works, but it works for me anyways. It's great.
How are the fans with yourself? They've obviously grown up with you over the past 10 years.
Yeah, they're great. Like, I mean, obviously on this tour as well, like, I've been going back, the whole concept of the show is that we start right back at XFactor and we go album through album, like all through the 6 albums up until now, and we finish on new material that I'm working for on a new album. And it's amazing. Like, I had a show last night in Newcastle, and it's just madness, like I step out there and the curtain goes up and stuff, and I stand there and I still think, wow, all these people have come to see me, like that never gets boring, it never, that novelty, I mean, it still hasn't worn off, and I respect them so much for choosing to spend their evening like watching me do something that I love, because yes, okay, it's hard sometimes, yes, it's really tiring, but it's a hobby for me, like it. And to know that so many people love something as much as I do is just, I don't know, it sounds really cliche to say, but it's an amazing connection that you have with people, and like they dance and sing along and clap along and just have a great time, and it's just a room full of love. It's amazing.
Would you like to come back to the Northeast with pantomime?
Do you know what? I would, and obviously I've worked with Michael for many years now. And I've been to see what he does at Newcastle with Clive and Danny and Chris and everyone, and I mean, it would be lovely to be here in my hometown, but it's their show, their show there. They do it the best, But who knows in the future? We'll see. But Clive, Danny, Chris, they're such a good team, and they put on such an amazing show there. But it would be wonderful to finish a show and only have 15 minutes to drive home, wouldn't it?
What, you mean you don't like the hotels they put you up in?
To be fair, you know what? I have to say as well, that's another amazing thing to experience being in different cities as well for long periods of time is also a great experience. And I don't actually mind being away from home. It doesn't really faze me that much now. I've spent so much of my career, and especially the early part of my career, being away from home, being on the road, like living in hotels 24/7. It doesn't. You just get used to it, I've been away. I've been away most of this year. I've probably spent about a month in my house this year, but you just get used to it. it just becomes part of your job.
What was it like then, that first Christmas where you were doing Panto and you weren't at home?
Yeah, that was a big adjustment because we'd normally go away on a holiday over Christmas. We've always been like a family where we get out of kind of the town for Christmas and go. We used to go skiing quite a lot, or we'd go to Florida when we were kids, or like Tenerife or Lanzarote or somewhere. We've never been like the traditional everybody sit round the table on Christmas Day. We're normally like in a random place abroad somewhere. So it didn't phase us that much being away, and a lot of the family came to me. So and they've done that now for years now. They just come to wherever I am and we all have Christmas there. So it I don't feel like I'm missing anything, you know. It's been quite and you're so busy. Like you have one day off, and half the time on that day off you eat your dinner and I sleep for the rest of the day because you've already done about 15 shows back to back. So I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And I'll find with Panto as well, it's kind of having an extended Christmas. You get all of that build up with the kids coming in to see the show and they're so excited for Christmas. They've got all their Santa hats on and the flashing lights and everything. And then after Christmas, when everybody has that horrible lull, oh, what we doing between Christmas and New Year? We don't get that because you're straight back into a show schedule and you're still celebrating the Christmas spirit until the end of January. So I always say it's like going to therapy for Christmas because you're just seeing everybody happy for like 2 months. It's great.
Do you get the Panto blues?
Yeah, I have before, but I think you get that anyways because it's the music industry as well closes down from like January to February and everything like that. So it's nice to be doing something through those periods of time, and by the time you finish, you've missed that horrible January. Like everybody hates January, don't they? It's just a miserable, after all of the highs of Christmas and everything. So, but yeah, sometimes you do because you're in such a bubble as well doing Panto that when you come out in the February, you're like, oh, I'm all on my own now.
What would you say then is your favourite part of pantomime?
I love the combination of like comedy, music, and the spectacle of it all, and being a part of like I said before, being able to be on stage with like comedy legends, and I've been lucky that they've involved me in some of the comedy and some of their scenes and things, and being a part of that, and just being able to kind of like Panto's just got this magic about it, that just sucks everybody in, and people just leave just feeling happy. And I think to be a part of something like that, doing something like that on stage, is just a special thing, And I always think, obviously, lots of ages, and that's the another great thing about Kudos is the show caters to all different ages. That's important to see as well, across from like adults down to 3-year-old kids coming and having the time of their lives. And I think for us to know that so many young people are coming and experiencing their first theatre that they'll remember for the rest of their life. If you ask most kids, like, what was your first experience of theatre? Most kids can tell you, I know what mine was, and it was pantomime, So to know that you're a part of that, of a new generation coming through and their love of theatre is a special thing.
Would you like to play a baddie?
Do you know what? I've never actually thought about that. I'd give it a go. It would be a challenge, I think, because I don't know how I'd feel about everybody booing us on stage.
It's never happened.
I don't know if my ego can handle it. No, I'm kidding. I would give it a go. I would definitely give it a go. It would be interesting. I think it would be a completely different way of working again. But I love a challenge, so I would never say never.
Because you're still too young to be a dame, I think.
I'm sure they'll try and do that at some point.
Would you like to give that a go, though?
I mean, to be fair, I've dressed up as a woman for the last 3 years for my birthday. I've had like Beyonce birthday theme parties. We had one in Scotland on the tour I was on recently. And we're dressed up as 3 Scottish sisters, me and 2 of the other cast. So I'm sure I could give a dame a go as well,
Do you get much advice then off of the actual other performers, not just the comics, but the other performers and directors?
Who you work with in the shows?
In the shows.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about with Kudos as well. It's like the rehearsal room's a real like collaborative effort as well, and their rehearsal processes are always so easy. Like everything's just, it's just I don't know. I always admire the way they work in terms of how they put the shows together. It's just like everything's organised. Everything's, you know what they want, they know what you want, and it just works. You know, everybody just comes together, and it just goes boom, and the jigsaw piece in 2 weeks, it's there. You know, and it's a great way of working, and it's really easy. You know, the rehearsal process, and I hate rehearsing. I find it really kind of, I feel really self-conscious in a rehearsal room. I find that I can't give the, I'm one of them people that I need the lights and everything to like switch into that gear. And I can switch it on, and the minute you put us in front of an audience, I can switch it on. I find it hard to do that in a rehearsal room. So I always struggle in that moment of being able to do what I'm going to do on stage. But I always, working with Kudos, I find their rehearsal process is the easiest out of anything I've ever done. So it's always, I never kind of dread the rehearsal room.
So the rehearsals then for XFactor and your XFactor journey,
Yeah.
were they quite terrifying then?
Well, they weren't terrifying, because a lot of, like, when you're solo singing, you're only rehearsing with yourself almost. You know, we were given backing tracks. You do the camera rehearsals and everything, and they used to always say it was in the rehearsals, oh, you need to give a bit more, you need to give a bit more, like you're just not giving 100%. And I knew I would always give 100% once the cameras went on, because that was that extra rush of adrenaline that would take you there. But I suppose people watching you don't know that you're going to do that. And then I think once they saw that, as soon as the camera action, they knew I could bring it to that level. They stopped saying that in the camera rehearsals. But I still get that now. You know, I sometimes go into rooms and I'm like, this won't be what I'll do on the night. You know, it'll be completely different. And I think a lot of performers are like that. They can't do it in a rehearsal room. It's like it's an extra piece of magic that you need the audience to be there. And I find that I work best under, I started my career under insane amounts of pressure. In a rehearsal room, there's no pressure in a rehearsal room. And so I find it hard to take myself to that point when there's not an audience there. And that audience provide that pressure. They provide that adrenaline. They provide that kind of extra kick up the bum, you know, to be like, you better deliver. I paid to come and see you.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing refunds at the end.
No,
do you?
no.
Have you ever had a bad gig?
I mean, I think everybody's had a bad gig, haven't they? But then I think the magic of a bad gig is to never let the audience know you've had a bad gig. You know, things go wrong in shows. You forget the words. Technical things happen, and I think if the audience do know, it's how you deal with it. Is always my rule. Is if you deal with it in the right way and you make it a part of the show, then it's not a mishap. Then it's become something that they experience that night that the next night won't experience, you know. I mean, I've come off stage and thought, you know, I wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd done that, and you know, I was croaky on this note, and you know, or certainly doing Club Tropicana and doing the Pantos as well. You deliver a comedy line and you just didn't, you come off and you go, if I had just phrased that a little bit differently or whatever. But I think that's just wanting to be good at your job. I don't think that's necessarily having a bad gig. I think it's just coming off and giving yourself notes, you know. And a lot of people, I've met a lot of people along the way that don't do that. And I think you never grow if you don't do that, you know. I'm really self-critical. Certainly with singing and stuff, you know, I come off and I go, right, that, like, tomorrow night I'm going to try this because I didn't like the sound of that, or things like that. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely had gigs where I've come off and been like, you know, the most frustrating thing for me is if you don't feel 100% and you really want to give them 100%, but you haven't got 100% to give. But I think if you always give them all you've got, then the audience always leave having had the best time, you know.
How are you finding audiences these days then, in the terms of, in 10 years coming from XFactor?
Yeah.
We've had more and more people with mobile phones, and we're hearing more in the press about how audiences are more disrespectful.
Yeah.
Have you
Well,
witnessed much of that?
I mean, I'm very lucky that certainly people who come to see my shows I'm talking on a concert level. People who have bought tickets to come see my shows are very, very respectful. They join in, but they're also respectful. They sit and listen. And I've always said that over the years. Like, fans of mine who've come to support me at things that I've been, they'll cheer, they'll whoop when you want them to, but they're also very respectful at the same time, which I'm really thankful for. I think social media plays a massive part, though, in terms of, I'm sure we hear a lot more about things that we maybe wouldn't have heard years before, because everything's so instant now. So you can hear directly from performers if they want to call somebody out in the audience, you know. Mobile phones have become a massive thing, and filming in shows. You see, there's a fine line for me, because, again, I come from a pop background initially, so from day one of me and being in the public eye, from day one of doing shows, when I've walked out on stage, I've seen mobile phones up in the air with flashlights on, and so that doesn't bother me. It doesn't intimidate us. It doesn't put me off. It doesn't affect me performance. You know, at times you can be like, all right, okay, put the phone down now and enjoy the show, but it doesn't offend us. Whereas I've worked in shows with performers and musical theatre performers who, and rightly so, you know, if that's your opinion, that is your opinion. If that puts you off, and if you think that disrespects a show, then you are entitled to feel that way, and you're entitled to call somebody out. But I do also draw the line. I think when people start mouthing off on Twitter about audience members, it's like, let's also remember that they've paid a ticket to come and see your show. So it's also just as disrespectful to start in, like, spouting off a load of, like, dialogue about an audience member that sat through your show. There's a fine line, and I don't think there's a right or wrong, but I think it's a mutual respect from both sides that we haven't quite reached yet.
Audiences have changed, though, haven't they, in the past 10 years?
I think so, yeah. I think it has changed, but so is casting as well, you know, with reality and, you know, I'm one of those people, so... Like, but I think casting's changed as well, and I think if you bring that dynamic in of casting people that are going to bring in a different audience, then yes, of course, the audience are going to change, because that audience that are following that person might not have gone to have seen that show before that, and that's also important to take all of that into consideration as well. It doesn't just fall on the audience, because, you know, you're bringing in different demographics of people that are following those certain people to come in to see different shows that might not have gone and seen that show previously, you know. So it's a very broad discussion, I think, you know.
Anything that you'd like to still do with your career?
I'd love to do a bit more acting. I'd love to do a bit of TV acting. I've kind of enjoyed exploring that. I'd love to travel with my music around the world, because my career is solely in the UK, really. I've never done anything outside of the UK. I'd love to, I'd love to just to experience more. I'm all for experiencing different styles of performance, you know. And I think over the years I've been able to experience different avenues and things that I never imagined I would do. And you only learn and grow. And the core of my career is obviously me solo singing and recording and tours and things like that. And I think all of the other avenues that I've been fortunate to experience only enhance that as well. So, yeah, more of just different challenges, things that push you outside of your comfort zone, that sometimes you have that moment before you start and think, oh my God, can I do this? I think it's important to have those moments, because it allows you to explore a different side of your career.
Anywhere you'd like to perform overseas?
I've always said over the years, I don't know where it is, but I'll probably know if I ever get there. I want to be in the most random place on the opposite side of the world, doing a concert and everybody singing me music, and think, wow, I'm a long way from home and people know me music. That's always kind of a tick list that I'd want to do.
The XFactor then, who put you forward for that?
Me? Yeah. I signed up for it. I think I was a fan of the show. I was a huge fan of the show. And I wanted to experience, you know, I wanted to be a singer. And I didn't go in it to win it, to be honest. I thought Even if I get, if my audition gets shown on telly, at least that's a bit of exposure, and I'll get a few local gigs. And excuse me, and yeah, I took it week by week, and here we are, 10 years later.
Can you believe it though? What was it like that night then when you won?
I can't remember a lot of it, sadly. It was such an intense weekend, and my adrenaline and nerves and everything, and I was genuinely in shock. And I think I've kind of erased the memory. All I remember is standing behind the screen with Simon, Ollie, and Cheryl, and I remember Simon looking down, just saying, "Good luck, boys. Whatever happens, you've both done an amazing job." We all had a big group hug. The doors opened, and I could not tell you what happened after that. Obviously, we see it on telly what happens, but I can't remember anything after that. I faintly remember the heartbeat noise just before they announced my name, and from the minute they announced my name, I don't really remember anything until being on GMTV the next morning at like 6 a.m. Everything after that is just a complete blur.
I always think, obviously, you can have a little bit of a party afterwards, aren't you? And then they're pushing you here, there, and everywhere. Was there a lot of media pressure on you at that time?
Well, you go straight to do like all the press shots and everything. You meet your management, and then I saw my family for a little bit, and then I was in a car at like, I was in a car at 4 a.m. in the morning with all of my stuff packed from the XFactor house on the way to GMTV to do a performance in the morning. So it was intense.
What point then did you start to feel kind of your own boss?
I don't think I felt like my own boss until maybe 4 years later.
That long?
Yeah. I think I didn't. I stayed with my first management company for the first year and a half, 2 years, and then I got rid of everybody because I just wanted to change, and I wanted to pick who I wanted to work with, not people who'd just been given to us off the back of the show. And even then, I found it really hard to say no to things. I found it hard to say what I didn't like and what I disliked, and if I was annoyed by something. And I find that can be more damaging than actually standing up for yourself a little bit, I think it's okay to say no, and it's okay to say, actually, that doesn't work for me. But let's look at it. Let's look at a way that we can get around that. So yeah, I would say about 4 years. 4 years, I think, before I thought, actually, like, this is my career, and I need to say where I want to go and what I want to do and what I want. Like, it's important in any business. If you're driving the ship, you've got to know where you want to go, or you've got to know what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do.
Would you still go back down that path if you had the knowledge you had now to tell yourself back then?
What would I still have done it?
Would you have still done it?
Yeah, I think so, because I think it was a great learning curve for the industry in general. And I think I learnt a lot from all of those. From navigating through that, it set us up in a very strong position of knowing how to deal with it going forward. And I think you have to, like any job, you learn through your mistakes and your failures. You don't learn through any of this. I think most people will tell you, having a top 5 or a top 10 album is a wonderful success. But I learned more from being dropped by a record label and learning how to bounce back from that, So I've learned more from failures, I think, than success. Because I think that's the way life works.
So you've done pop, musical theatre,
yeah,
pantomime,
yeah, classical, yeah.
Anything else that you'd like to do?
Oh God, maybe a bit of country music. Try and be Dolly Parton, shall I? Do you know what? I've learned as well. Like now, I've experienced way more than I ever thought I would have experienced. I've also learned not to plan too much now as well. Like next year, I'm obviously going to do stuff, and I'm going to probably tour my own stuff and things like that. But in terms of like the bigger plan, I don't actually have a main big plan next year. I've just kind of said to everyone, let's just see what's out there. Let's just take a little step back, have a little look, and see what's going on, and see who's interested, who's not, and see what we want to do, rather than kind of plan 2 years in advance. So that I've always kind of been on a rolling treadmill where I've always known a year in advance what I'm going to do, which is great. But then also other things come in at the time, and you go, oh, I can't do that now because I've already signed to do this. And, you know, that's a lucky position to be in. But I think next year I kind of want to just see what's out there and see what options there are, and kind of have a little, just a slight pause and have a look around and see what's on the table, you know? And I think it's important to do that every now and again and not just be on a constant treadmill.
What do you do to relax?
Lie in bed and watch Netflix. But then again, I love exercising, you know? I love, like, going out for a run. I love going to the gym. I love skiing. Like, I love going skiing. We go, like, every year for a big family holiday. But yeah, just, like, my job's so active and so social, and, like, I'm always meeting people. I'm always talking to people that I tend to, on a day off, just want to lie around and not speak to anyone. You know, it's kind of the opposite of what you would think. Because my job involves so much socialising and always being around people that sometimes you just want, like, to not be around anyone.
And always being nice.
Well, yeah, but not just, like, you know, just being switched on all the time, you know. So I just sometimes want to lie around, eat rubbish food, and just not move out of bed. And I do it quite often.
What are you watching then on your Netflix?
I'm recently watching, not on Netflix, on Apple TV, The Morning Show, Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. I've also just finished watching Schitt's Creek, which was brilliant. Bloodline, I've just finished watching that. Line of Duty. And everybody loves a bit of Friends and Will and Grace and all of that kind of stuff.
And what's on your Spotify playlist?
Do you know what? I don't even go on Spotify. I use Apple Music, but I don't really use Spotify that much. But at the minute, what am I listening to? Do you know what? The last few weeks, I've been rehearsing. It sounds so arrogant, and I don't mean this to be arrogant, but I've been rehearsing for the tour. So I've been listening to all of my... I've been listening... We did a week-long band rehearsals in London, and we recorded everything from the sound desk and stuff. So I've literally had that playing in my ears, like driving, in the car, like everywhere I've gone, sitting on train journeys, singing on the train, learning, because, you know, to learn a full new tour show is quite intense. So I haven't really been listening to any other music recently.
I can imagine that would be quite tricky if you were stopped by the police.
And they're like, oh my God, he listens to his own music. I think you have to, though. You know, you have to listen to it if you're learning your own stuff for a show. It's just a bit weird for me, you know. My friends get in the car and it'll flick on the Apple Music and they're like, oh my God, you listen? I'm like, I'm rehearsing. I'm not, like, choosing to listen to my own album.
What do you sing then in the shower?
Love a bit of Beyonce, Whitney Houston, bit of Celine Dion. I'm a big Celine Dion fan.
The divas.
Yeah. Can't beat the divas.
Anybody you'd like to collaborate with?
I say Beyonce all the time. Just to even meet Beyonce, I'd love to meet Beyonce. Celine Dion, I do love Celine Dion as well. Love Shania Twain. More recently, I love Dua Lipa. I love... who else do I love? Adele. Who else? There's loads. I always think collaborations should always be something that's not expected, though. It should be two kind of different artists that really kind of bring something together in a completely different way. So maybe a non-obvious choice that I haven't really thought about.
When you're actually putting together an album,
yeah,
what's the creative process then?
Completely different. Each album's been different. So my first album it took a year to record, well, pretty much a year, from about January to September, October. And that was like going into the studio and recording on loads of different songs to just see what worked. So there was no set plan, different styles, different songs, different producers. Then my second album, we recorded in a week. So we literally picked the songs on the Monday. The next day, I recorded a demo tracks, and then I did 2 songs a day, every day, to the Saturday, and then the producers actually flew out to Prague and got the orchestra to record around my voice, and then the following week it was released. So that was a really quick turnaround. Third album was a Christmas album. So again, you knew the songs you were going to sing. It was kind of the typical Christmas songs. Fourth one was a lot more original material, and I did a lot of songwriting. So I went to a lot of songwriting sessions and sat in and wrote with people. So that was quite a long process. The fifth album was, again, Saturday Night at the Movies, the obvious choice. So it's different every time. And the album I'm working on at the minute is, again, I'm writing my own material and nothing's kind of set in stone. So just very free and kind of picking and choosing what days I want to do songwriting and who I want to work with and seeing what we come up with. So it depends who you're working with at the time.
How on earth do you remember all the lyrics, though?
It's mad. I have these moments sometimes where I'm singing and I think I've got no idea what these lyrics are, but they're just coming out of my mouth. Because they're so ingrained, you know? Certainly like songs that I've sang for a long, long time. And obviously like stuff like Joseph. I did that show for nearly 3 years. By the way, that it's not me, that's the seat, if you can hear that on the podcast. Like Joseph I did for 3 years, and those songs, you know, like they're just ingrained. I could literally sing that show tomorrow without a rehearsal all the way through because it's just ingrained in your brain.
Would you ever like to get into production and directing?
I mean, I do production and I direct and produce all of my concerts, you know, lighting and everything. It's all the band arrangements and everything. I work with an MD, but it's all of my own creative ideas of what I want to do with the songs, how we want to change them. And we do it as a collaborative thing in the rehearsal room with the band and everybody chips in with ideas. But it stems a lot from my ideas. In terms of actual like musicals and stuff, maybe I've thought about certainly over the last couple of years of maybe starting to produce my own concerts, of not me being in them, but other people. But I have enough on my plate. Dealing with my own career. Never mind having to deal with other people's. So maybe if I wanted to take a step back from my own stuff, that would be an avenue I would look into. But at the minute, it's, you know, like my world of my work kind of takes up everything at the minute, you know, and it's an ongoing. You've got to keep that momentum and movement going, and it takes a lot of energy and work behind the scenes to keep that going. So I don't think I could commit to that fully yet. So, but definitely in the future.
Would you say theatre's always been your first love?
I think music has been my first love, and I think theatre comes into that bracket. I think I've been lucky that because of XFactor, I was presented with opportunities in musical theatre, and I had a natural passion and love for it that it's allowed us to welcome it into my world, you know, and I've been welcomed into that world as well, which has been lovely. You know, because I know that a lot of people, you know, when somebody from the XFactor gets signed up to do a musical show, everyone's like, oh, here we go, generic, you know, are they going to be able to do the job and everything? And for me, I wanted to prove that I could do it, you know, and I wasn't just being put there to sell tickets. I wanted people to go and say he was really good at that. So I felt that pressure from the beginning, and I still feel that now, you know. When I walk into a rehearsal room with a load of people who've trained in London for years and years and years, and who are very established in their areas of their career, I want to walk out of that room and everyone go, oh wow, he was actually really good at that. You know, I don't want them to go, oh, we've got to carry him along for the next 6 months. So, and I acknowledge that I know that people have those opinions of people, and I never want to fall into that bracket. So I always want to be good at what I do.
It is a bit of a stigma, though, isn't it? Because
100%.
You are seeing a lot of these kind of non-talent reality shows.
Yeah.
And people are put in sort of to sell tickets and can't do the job.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this 10 years now, and I like to think I've done a lot of things over the years, you know, and people still who've never seen me perform before will come up to us and go, oh my God, you can actually sing. And I'm like, well, that is my job. Like, you would hope so. But it's that stigma. People just assume with that show that it's like a manufactured fake thing that doesn't actually exist. You know, but I kind of enjoy that as well, because it allows you to kind of... I've always enjoyed proving people wrong, and I've always been a little bit of an underdog. And I was an underdog on XFactor in the beginning, you know. I kind of was... I just worked my way through and just got on with it. And... I don't know. I suppose if you walk into a room and everybody's expectations is here, it's always gonna fall to there. Whereas if you start there, you can kind of you can raise the expectations yourself, I suppose, a little bit. So I don't mind that. I don't mind the stigma that's attached with it, because it just makes me want to be good at my job, you know, and want to prove people wrong.
So Panto scripts, have you had yours yet?
I have. It's a good one.
Do you get that excitement when you're reading it?
It's a good one.
With your highlighter paper?
I mean, you know, like everything Michael does is brilliant, you know. And I've worked with Michael now for 5-6 years probably. This will be here's my fifth Panto. But everything's always great, you know. Kudos are, like I said before, they're great at what they do. So I saw the script the other day. Some great gags in there, some great routines, great songs, and it's the Palladium version from last year. So we're gonna have a fantastic set, costumes. My entrance is very fabulous. That's all I will say. It's a fabulous entrance.
Well, on that note, I'm going to ask you my very last question.
Yes.
Your dream pantomime. You can be in it. You can choose the production. You can choose your cast, alive or dead.
Wow.
Oh yes.
Anybody as well.
Anybody.
Not anybody who's.
There's no budget.
I mean, right. Okay.
And also as well the venue.
Okay.
You can even produce and direct it if you want to.
Right. I'm gonna say. So I'm gonna say. Dick Whittington, because I did that last year and I actually really enjoyed that as a pantomime. Or Aladdin, one of the two. I'm gonna say venue Newcastle, because I'm biased and I'm from here. And I'm gonna go completely the opposite side of, like, I'm gonna go people who've not done Panto before. I want Celine Dion as fairy godmother.
Oh.
Or fairy bowbells or whatever it is. I want, who else do I want? Hugh Jackman as, I don't have to name the characters, do I? Celine Dion, Hugh Jackman.
Yes, you do.
Oh, do I? Celine Dion, Hugh Jackman.
Who'd be Dick?
I'd be Dick. Because I played it last time. Celine Dion, Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman, I think, would be a good baddie, actually.
He would be.
I think he'd be really good. And he hasn't really
King
played
Rat,
a role like that. Yeah. Well, let's throw Beyonce in there. We need a good comic as well. Do you know what? I'd say Matt Slack, Billy P.S. or Clive and Danny. This cast is getting very out of control now. Let's throw Beyonce in there. Oh, and let's get Bette Midler in as well. Yeah.
That'd be expensive tickets.
It would be expensive, but I think we'd make it back. I reckon Celine Dion could sell it.
So you were Dick last year.
Yes.
How did you find the double entendres?
Oh, well, I mean, you know, that's another great thing, though, because it just goes over the kids' head, and the adults find that hilarious, you know? So,
well, some of the kids,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. It was great. I really enjoyed that show, and we did it at Southampton, the Mayflower. Great cast, great show. And this year, Spirit of the Mirror, Birmingham. But Spirit of the Mirror is a fun role for me because it allows you to be involved in some of the comedy with, you know, you do all of the kind of 12 Days of Christmas things and all of that stuff. And you spend a lot of time with the comics and, you know, you're kind of not the narrator of the show, but you kind of come on, you save the day, you leave, you come back on, and you're a part of the kind of main little plots along the way. So, and in this script, I got a really good relationship with Snow White and the Prince and saving the day, and it's nice to be a hero.
Doesn't sound like you're going to be putting your feet up much in the dressing room either.
It's a full-on show, but it's and I've got a lot of songs this year, which will be lovely, and really good songs. But just, you know, getting to work with Leslie as well. I know Leslie just from being in the industry. We're friends. I know Matt. We all met on the press day, and I'm really looking forward to it. And you know, Birmingham Hippodrome is the biggest in the country. That and the Palladium, I suppose. So to be asked to be a part of that is magnificent. You know, I'm honoured the vastest and happy to be back with Kudos again.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for spending time.
Thank
you.
you.
Podcast.
Panto.